He's Black Guy Fawkes, and I'm what you get when you order Stone Cold Steve Austin on Temu. And together we are Fawkes and Friends. Today, the third friend who we're talking to about the creative process is Grant
One,
Minnick.
two, three, four. From coast to coast, from sea to shining sea, what he got is fucking long. His life's not made for you and me. We're chatting built that wall as we tear down Bottom Stall. And watch our kids get slaughtered as they run straight through the hall. Let's go!
And Jesus Christ. Usually I'm not speechless. Now I actually am. But well, welcome to the second episode of Fox Friends of 2025. And Jesus, I don't even know what to say anymore.
I broke you, and that's great.
You did. And well, I'll tell you what, I'm about to break the internet because there's a lot of stuff happening here soon that I'm excited to talk about.
3 of them you can talk about right now.
So, as I said last episode, I'll be at Sing a Song this year with Dave Voss. It's been myself, Dave Voss, Frank Turner, Bouncing Souls, John Gallagher Jr., Dan Angion of the Alkaline Trio, Speedy Ortiz, and there's so many other people. Then after that, I'm on tour with Apes of the State, and we're going to hit Canada with 656 Stripes, going up to Cruiser Fest, which again is going to be fucking wild. I unfortunately won't be playing, but I'll be up there hanging out, so let's hang out, let's talk. And then this just got announced, and I'm excited about this. We are back for a 30-year full band at Camp Pennsylvania. We got the OBGMs, we got Soji, we got Rich City Sinners, the Vandals, Rebelmatic, Cardboard, Homestead, so many others. Just so many others. So tickets on silver, all of that right now. And if you use the code Black Guy Fawkes while getting your camp ticket, you get 10% off. So take hold of that. Now we have an interview with somebody that you put me onto, Grant Minnick.
Yeah, he's a local guy here. He's actually the first live music I saw this year. And I really love his new album, Panels. Let's get into it and talk about it with Grant Minnick. Grant Minnick, welcome to Fawkes and Friends. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being on. Ed brought me on to you recently. I forgot when, maybe like a few months ago, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
And before music use, he told me that you're big into graphic novels.
Oh, yeah.
So I am too.
Okay.
Very much. So I'm curious, what is your history of graphic novels? Like, how did you get into them?
Oh, wow. So whenever I was this would have been probably 8th grade, I think. I had read comics before. I grew up with reading comic strips in the Sunday paper, stuff like that. Calvin and Hobbes was a big thing for me growing up. And it wasn't until 8th grade for my English class, there was this really cool student teacher there who was big into graphic novels. And he was talking about them one day, and I'm like, yeah, like I have a little bit of experience with comics, but not much. And so he was like, okay, here's some to get you started. And the first one that I read that absolutely sealed the deal, and I was like, I'm diving full on headfirst into this, was Mouse by Art Spiegelman. And because that was the first one where I was just like, man, comics can be like this, like the just the storytelling power and the fact that it was like nonfiction. I didn't know that like nonfiction comics were like a thing. So that was a big eye opener for me. So yeah, that was the one. And then after that, I was just like going down the rabbit hole of anything I could get my hands on. Like I would go to the library like every weekend and pick out new ones and work my way through like the classics. I got real big into Batman, and yeah, so that was like the start of it.
Yeah, I would say for me, one I fucking love Mouse.
Yeah.
He's just, well, I think the one that was a big kicker for me when I got into comics was I grabbed when I was like, I read like Batman, Spider-Man when I was younger, but I didn't really fully grasp it. But the one that got me was the one I got in high school, and I read Watchmen.
Oh yeah.
And that changed my life forever.
Yeah.
It's fucking incredible.
Right? Yeah.
And I wanted to see when it comes to your songwriting. So I like the way I write music is very, I imagine either like a comic or like a movie if I'm making a record, basically. How would you say that graphic novels incorporated in your songwriting?
So quite honestly, it's always been a dream project of mine to do an album that was inspired by comics and graphic novels. And I knew like years ago that was something that I wanted to do. And I had the title for it, and that was about it. I didn't know what beyond that I was going to do with it. And it was just a very gradual process. And honestly, one that I wasn't even sure was ever going to happen. But I started hanging out with some people who were like filmmakers and poets and musicians and just real creative, like artsy people. And I saw the cool things that they were doing. And I'm just like, you know what? I'm going to try and go full into this and do it and make it a reality. So I was like, okay, got to come up with some melodies. And I did the melodies first. And then I figured out, okay, this kind of reminds me of this specific comic, or like what I would imagine like a movie version of that comic would have in it. And from there, it was just writing the lyrics. And I didn't want each song on the album to be specifically about certain comics, more just inspired by them. And so once I had a song for each like comic that I wanted to cover, like in my head, I was just like, okay, like what's something that I could spin off of this to make like my own sort of thing.
When Grant was telling me about the idea before I had even heard the whole album, I'm like, this is the coolest thing. Shout out to that album, Panels, which is available where, Grant?
Pretty much anywhere you can get your music: Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube, Amazon Music, all the big ones.
I don't know if I told you this, Grant, but I was nervous when you suggested it to me, because you sometimes have people who are like, "Hey, this is my music," and man, you don't want to ever tell anyone that their music is not good, and then and you do the polite thing. But obviously, I really enjoyed it.
Cute. I'm glad you did.
Specifically, I want to talk about how you do the music, because you're doing everything on that record, right? For the most part.
For the most part, there's like a couple features here and there, but pretty much all the instrumentation and arrangement was me. I had a guy who I used to work with actually at the like my day job, that I learned he was real big into music and making music and producing and stuff like that. And he helped me out a lot with the mixing and mastering and that kind of side of things. But when it came to like actually arranging the music and doing like the instrumental parts and stuff like that, it was pretty much me. In the early stages of it, I had a friend who had an internship at the college in town, IUP, and he was a communications major. And so because of that, he had access to like all the recording equipment and all that kind of stuff. But he was dipping his toe into music as well. And it was a process of learning together. So like he was using that to gain more experience when it came to producing and making music from that side of things. And he knew that I had wanted to do like this album for a while. And so he was like, yeah, we'll just learn together how to do it. So we went to one of the studios at the college, like 3-4 nights a week. And we'd go 7 or 8 at night till like sometimes 2-3 in the morning, just like messing around and seeing what we could come up with. And a lot of the initial demos that ended up turning into the songs on Panels were recorded with him. And then after that, it was all the demos down, and I wanted to take them to the next level and like mix and master them and everything. And I had no knowledge how to do any of that. So this other guy, James is his name, that I worked with, and found out that he had been making music like most of his life. He was like, yeah, I'd love to hear some of your stuff. And he had a degree in like audio engineering, and I know what I'm doing with that. And I'm like, okay. So I showed him some of my demos, and he was like really impressed. And I was, do you think this is like worth releasing? And he's absolutely. He goes, you could just release this on its own. And I said, well, I don't want to do that. I have a vision for it that I don't feel like it's up to par with yet. And he was like, yeah, I'm absolutely, like, just tell me what you want and I'll try to get it done and make it happen. So he was perfect for what I needed him to do. He was really good at being able to interpret the vision I had for the music and do his magic and technical side of things and get it to where I wanted it to go. But yeah, both of those guys, both Levi and James, I couldn't have done it without them for sure.
Now, on the music writing side, are you starting with the music element? Are you starting with lyrics? Where does the song come from for you?
Most times it starts with the music. I listen to so much music on a daily basis, and I feel like because of that, like I have all these like melodies, like it's ingrained in who I am as a person. I'll be like doing something like in my daily routine, whether it's like work or chores or whatever, and I'll get like a melody pop into my head and I'm just like, oh, I need to record that and write it down like right now so I don't lose it. And then whenever I get like an available moment, I'll come back to it, and then I'll add like lyrics to it. And yeah, the melody almost always comes first for me though.
On your record, I noticed that it was very much, I found it very sonically similar to Vance Joy.
Okay.
To an extent, who were you listening to? Who are your influences for this project and music in general?
Yeah, in general, I get a ton of inspiration from Sufjan Stevens. He's a big one for me. Who else? Tom Waits is a huge inspiration. Shaky Graves is a big one for me. And then, I don't know, when it comes to more of the pop sort of side of things, I don't know. There's a lot that I take really small bits and pieces from. Odessa is another one that I have gotten inspiration from. But yeah, I don't love confining myself to one box. Like when it comes to genre, I kind of like to just throw a bunch of stuff at the wall and see what sticks, and then go that way. I feel like limiting myself to just folk or just electronic music or just pop, or I don't love the idea of conforming to that mold. So because I listen to so many different types of music, I feel like I try to have that reflect in my art too.
That makes perfect sense. Even for me, I really did that a good bit just because I don't want me just defined as being like folk punk. No, I can do all this stuff outside of that too. That's not, I don't want to just be a niche, because once you, because like you said, once you do that, you just restrain yourself to just that one thing for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
And you just, I feel like that limits growth. And on the flip side too, when it comes to graphic novels, what writers do you like?
Oh, there was a while I was going for like all the big ones, Alan Moore, Frank Miller, the ones that are generally considered like classics, like Grant Morrison, a lot of the ones that did a lot of work with DC specifically. I mean, I like Marvel, but I'm a DC fan for life.
Yep.
Yeah. And I still read Marvel comics. I still enjoy them, but I gravitated towards a lot of, at least at the beginning, a lot of writers and artists that worked a lot with DC. And then when I started moving more into indie comics, there were like a whole bunch of other ones that I discovered that I ended up loving, who I at first had never even really heard of. But I think as far as like my all-time favorites go, it's going to sound weird. I feel like I'm less drawn to like the writers and more drawn to the work itself. Because there are some writers that I absolutely love some of their works, and some of their other stuff, I'm just like, yeah, this isn't for me. I think Garth Ennis falls into that category for me. I love some of his stuff, and some of his others, I'm just like, I don't know. Same with Tom King. Some of Tom King's work I find fantastic. And then some of his others, I'm just like, it's a little like off of what I'm normally into, like when it comes to not even just comics, but storytelling in general. Grant Morrison's another for me. Some of his works I think are some of the best comics ever. And then some of his are just like too out there for me. So yeah, I think when it comes to like writers, I tend to focus more on like specific works that inspire me, and not as much writers. Artists, on the other hand, it's a different story. I feel like there are definitely like artists that I definitely gravitate towards just because I like their visual style. Tim Sale, back when he was still living, was a huge one for me. The guy that did the art for Lock and Key, I love his art style. I would say is my favorite comic of all time. Gabriel Rodriguez. But yeah, artists are a different thing for me than writers, which is weird because I'm a songwriter. So,
well, I feel like they both just go hand in hand. Illustration style has to match, I guess, the tone of the story. That's why I like Dark Knight Returns so much because the artwork is just so gritty, just so
Oh yeah.
fucking out there, but it matches the tone of what's happening inside the whole Batman universe. At
Mhm.
that point, with being taken over with just so much. I do love Grant Morrison. I believe he did All-Star Superman, which is one of my
He did.
favorites. I love Alan Moore. I wish he was a little more lenient when it comes to his film adaptations because he gets
I
so mad for
agree.
no reason. And
I
he
agree.
just comes off very pretentious. But that said, too, of course, with a name like Black Guy Fawkes, I read V for Vendetta. But I watched the movie version first. Now I read it, but my art, this is fair. It's 10 times better.
Mhm.
But yeah, I'm with you. But one of my, just because it's who I am as a person, because I love My Chemical Romance. I love Gerard Way's work. And I love Umbrella Academy with a fiery passion. Like, it's just so well crafted, just so well done.
I have to admit, I have not read all of it yet. I've read like the first maybe 2 issues, and I have all the like the trade paperback editions, but I haven't dove headfirst into them yet. I've really liked what I've read, but yeah, I need to get more into those because they've been on my list for a while. But yeah.
A cartoonist that you and I share in common is Charles Burns.
Oh yeah.
You were telling me that Black Hole was the inspiration behind The Woods.
My girl woke me up the other night. She said things just ain't feeling right, and she don't wanna be my lover. I looked at her and asked her why. She turned away and started crying. Said she knows that there's another. She heard me talking in my sleep, and now I feel like such a creep, 'cause I know we can't be together. I look at her, apologize, she glares at me and through her cries says that she wants me gone forever.
So how did Black Hole inspire this song, and where did you take it from there?
So I originally, like I do for most of my songs, I came up with the melody first, and I started just coming up with lyrics, and then I was like, oh, this reminds me of this specific part of Black Hole. The song is written from the perspective of 2 different characters in the book, was how I originally wanted it to go. The first section I wanted to be like the kid who has the mouth on his neck. His perspective was what inspired the first couple verses of that song. And around that, I built the first part of The Woods. And those who haven't read the comic, essentially there's set in the 70s, it follows a bunch of like teenagers that are all kind of like, some have interactions with some and they connect over the course of the story, but it follows multiple different characters. It jumps around a lot. And that's how I went into the songwriting process lyrically, was having it be from different perspectives. And the first one was from that kid that his girlfriend breaks up with him because she heard this little mouth on his neck talking while he was asleep and mentioning another girl. And so she leaves him, and the characters in the book, they go off to this kind of makeshift camp basically in the woods. And so that's where the chorus comes from, pack up our things and head on down to a different neck of the woods. And then the bridge of that song was from the perspective of, again, I forget the character's name, but the first one that you see who falls in love with the girl who has a tail. And he turns this house that he's like house sitting into a place for these kids that have this disease, they call it the bug, to camp out in. And that whole part is, I wanted to dive into what he was thinking and going through. So it took off from there. I was like, okay, I have the basic idea of what I want to do. And then when I was writing the song, it was like I literally had a copy of the book like with me, because I own all the books that inspired the music. And so it was really valuable to have that with me as I'm writing the lyrics and flip through it and just do it that way.
Black Hole is one of my all-time favorite things. So if you have time before the plane, Ian, stop at a comic book store, pick up Black Hole by Charles Burns.
That's one thing I want to get back into reading comics this year, honestly, because I do love graphic novels. I love that. Love comic book worlds, and just how they do reflect the world we live in right now, or back then, or some of it reflects fucking right now. Like Mouse is starting to really reflect right now. That's the size point. But
Grant, you were actually my first live music of 2025. How are you feeling as a performer versus a songwriter? Is that a different experience for you than crafting stuff? What do you like? What do you not like? Which part do you prefer?
It is very different. I feel like performing for me is something that I just don't really have to think about when I'm up there. Like it's something that when I'm on stage, I just block everything else out and I just let the music do its thing. Like I'm up there, nothing else matters. And I get in the zone. I've played 3-hour sets before and like just gone completely straight through the whole way. And I've had people ask me before, is there a reason you don't take a break midway through a set? And I'm like, absolutely. It's because I've tried it before. And if I do take a break in the middle of the set, once that momentum is gone, I can still like make do with the rest of it and I can still get up there and perform again, but it's like having to build up that momentum again. Once
Yeah.
it's lost, you have to get it rolling again. And if I don't take a break in the middle, it's just like that same level of energy the whole way through without having to worry about building it back up again a second time. So that's like performing for me. Whereas, working on like songwriting and working on like an album, it's a lot more like I have to take my time with it a lot more. It's something where there's so many different possible options with ways you could take a certain song. A lot of times when I perform one of my original songs live, it sounds very different from the version that was on the album or will eventually make it like to another project in the future. And I feel like when I'm performing, it's usually just me and my ukulele and that's it. Whereas when I'm working on an album, I have like my DAW that I use and everything. And the options are a lot more than just a uke and my voice. And even with those options, like my voice and my uke, there's endless directions you can take those too with like different effects and like things like that too. So I feel like it's a lot more open to experimentation that way.
yes, to relate, I'm used to like those 3-hour gigs, and that momentum, I truly fucking feel that.
Mm-hmm.
Because then once you lose momentum, then of course, if you're playing for a crowd, they also lose momentum too if they're actually getting into it. If you ever take a break and everything too. I haven't done like 2 or 3 hour gigs in a while, so but I know that it was very strenuous. Like I did one before, like I think last year at like farmers market, but I still remember like guess it drags a lot and it's strenuous, but also I think that because that kind of helped me build a bit more as an artist too, just having that stamina. But yeah, I do the creative process a lot more, just like you. Like it again, you get to take your time with it and just figure out like what is your full mission on what you want to do with it. So
Yeah. I've learned that art because I've heard before, like not even just musicians, but like creators and artists in general saying that all art is a collaborative process. And I was like, well, if you're doing stuff solo, how does that work? And then I put out a solo album and I'm like, okay, I see it now. Because there was a lot of stuff where I was just like, I had a vision in my head and it was still like, at the end of the day, it's my songs. I wrote them and arranged them and all that. But there's so many elements that I just didn't account for going into that. And like I said before, the more technical side of things was something that I just really did not have much of a clue of like how to approach it. And so being able to collaborate with people that were able to see what I was going for and use their skills and their creativity in like an area I was unfamiliar with to get my work to where I saw it like going was great. I released in 2023 an album with my one band. We're called Paint Mutation, and we've never played live or anything. Like we just released our one album and that was it. But even that, because I worked with those guys before going on to do panels. Even with Paint Mutation, it was like I had this idea going into panels that because it was a solo project, that it would somehow be like different from working with my bandmates. And in some ways it was, because the actual songwriting process was like my own entirely. But a lot of things I was surprised how similar it was working with other people, because even though it was a solo project, I was still working with other people. But yeah.
Oh, it's said too. I think it's time. I think it's time for our favorite game.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Guys, motherfucker. So we got some quick fire questions for you. Again, we say quick fire, but at this point, it's not really quick fire.
I got you.
It's a low stakes blend of fuck around and find out.
We need higher stakes, honestly.
Higher stakes.
Yeah, with death or
Wow, that escalated quickly.
what's higher than death? Don't ask that. Anyway, so my first one for you is, you already mentioned Mouse, but give me your Mount Rushmore, your top 4 graphic novels of all time.
Okay, Lock and Key has got to be up there. That's my number one, I would say. Sin City is a big one. That was it formed my taste a lot, because I read that pretty early on as well into my journey with comics. So yeah, definitely Sin City. I would say Day Tripper is a huge one for me. It's actually the artist that did the art for Umbrella Academy. We Day Tripper together. Beautiful book. Highly recommended if you haven't read it. And as for a fourth, I'll go with it. Batman: The Long Halloween, I would say.
So good.
Yeah. Not only is it my favorite Batman story ever, like in any medium, like I think it's better than any of the films, any of the other comics. Like it's peak. It's perfection in my opinion. But I think it's also like one of the greatest superhero stories ever told, if not the greatest, I think.
So that being said, too, give me your Mount Rushmore of graphic novel to film adaptations.
Oh, okay.
This is where we're all going to divide, probably, because 3 nerds with opinions. So
Gotcha. Okay, I have a couple different lists. Some for superhero like comic to film adaptations, and some for non-superhero comic
We
to
want
film
both.
adaptations. Okay, got you. I'll give you the superhero ones first. As far as those go, obviously The Dark Knight. That's up there for me. Watchmen, specifically the director's cut of Watchmen, I think is fantastic. I love it.
statement, honest factual statement. I love it. All right, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's okay. I love the animated Dark Knight Returns like 2-parter. I think that's great. Okay, so I'll give my non-superhero comic ones. Sin City, and this is in no particular order. Sin City, Snowpiercer, Road to Perdition is a big one for me, and then Akira is up there. I would say Ghost World is a big one for me. Actually, I prefer the movie of Ghost World over the comic. And then another big one, another manga adaptation is Old Boy. That's a huge one for me too.
Oh boy, yeah. I've yet to read a comic, but obviously I do love Old Boy. And,
That one surprised me. I did not know that was based on a comic.
Yeah, it's very different. It's a lot of it is like, because the manga is like a lot longer. There's a lot more to it. And I think I would say the movie's better. It like really hones in on like certain aspects, like the better aspects of the manga, and leaves out the stuff that I wasn't as big of a fan of. But yeah, for sure.
And the only thing I think we'll argue on it will be The Dark Knight, because I have many feelings towards that movie. But I set them aside for a little bit.
Okay.
No, I can't. The best one is Robert Pattinson's The Batman.
I'm still wrestling with that. Whenever that movie first came out and I like went to the theater to see it, I genuinely had a very difficult time determining which interpretation of Batman I liked better, the Batman or the Dark Knight. I think that the Batman gives, I would say, the most comic accurate version of Batman that we've ever gotten, besides the Adam West stuff from the 60s.
See, I have 3 Batman that I will. Well, no, 4 technically, but one of them is goated, so I'm not gonna include one of those because he's like Michael Jordan, which is Kevin Conroy.
Oh yeah,
But
absolutely.
my top 3 Batman in no particular order are Pattinson, Keaton. I love Michael Keaton as Batman, and Ben Affleck. Those are my top 3 Batman.
That's a curveball. I like it though.
Affleck, he had the body for it, and also he had that Bruce Wayne persona down pat, and that
For sure.
almost Kevin Conroy type persona too. So I loved him for that. Granted, again, just like with Watchmen, the ultimate cut of Batman vs Superman is 10 times better than
Oh yeah.
what Zack Snyder put out, but that's a whole different rant.
Are you looking forward to the James Gunn DCU stuff, like the new Superman coming out this summer and all that?
Yeah, I originally, I don't know. I hate to say I was skeptical because looking at Gunn's track record, I don't really see much of a reason to be skeptical because I like most of his past work. And I feel like The Galaxy, the first one, was like a big movie for me growing up. I remember seeing that movie when it first came out and just being like, what? Just blown away by it. And then fast forward to when he made the Suicide Squad, and I, like a lot of people, did not like the first one. And so I was like, okay, he's got to really prove himself here. And I think he absolutely did. And yeah, so I don't know why I was skeptical with seeing where he took the new stuff. And then the trailer for Superman came out and I'm like, oh yeah, I'm fully on board.
All right. If you had to make a Grant Minnick pizza, what are the toppings on it and why?
Oh, wow.
That's a good question.
That is a good question. That's a really good question. A big one that I've been going with lately, if I'm ordering out for pizza, if I'm like getting takeout, I've been doing like thin crust, pepperoni, and olive and mushroom.
The question is, what kind of pepperoni? Because that's a very specific question. Do you like tiny peps?
I like medium size, not like sandwich pepperoni, but like medium size, I would say. I'm not a huge fan of, I mean, I'll eat them, but I'm not a huge fan of the really tiny ones that it's almost like a cup. Like I don't love those ones.
Where's Dark Knight? Now this, my heart. Literally, because
My lunch today was leftover pizza because I ordered pizza yesterday, and it was topped with sausage, green pepper, and pineapple.
Oh, that sounds delicious.
But my favorite topping for a regular pizza is broccoli.
Okay. See, it wasn't until last year that I was made aware of broccoli as a pizza topping. It was actually during one of the panels sessions, actually, because my friend James and I, we were both getting hungry, and he was like, "How about I order some pizza?" I'm like, "I can't say no to that." So he's, "What do you like on it?" I'm like, "I'm not picky. I'll have anything." So he goes, "Okay, do you like vegetables?" I'm like, "I'll eat some vegetables on a pizza." He's okay. There's a place like right near, like pretty close to where he lives, that does like a vegetable pizza, and they like load this thing up, and one of the things that they put on it is broccoli. And I was skeptical going in. I'm like, broccoli on a pizza? And then I tried it, and my whole worldview was shifted when it came to pizza from that point on.
I love broccoli on a white pizza. I love broccoli on a plain cheese pizza with tomato sauce. Broccoli is, and Ian's just once again wondering why he puts up with me. I don't know.
Then I'm just wondering how I'll get a new co-host. But broccoli on pizza, and we'll come back to pineapple here in a little bit. But
pineapple on pizza is good, and anyone who says otherwise is wrong. I'm sorry.
I didn't know I'm doing this podcast. I didn't know I'm doing a podcast with a fucking cop. You legally just told me you're a cop. That's I am hurt. Well, that I feel like mine will probably be just light sauce, and I love tiny peps, and a drizzle of hot honey.
Oh, hot honey on a pizza.
But I also like
So
myself like the
good.
margarita one too. I just like just the basil, just cheese and light sauce. I'm also textured too, so I need a crispy crust.
That's fair.
But also not too not too crispy, but not too doughy, just the right amount.
Gotcha.
Okay, Black Guy Goldilocks.
Black Guy Locks. That's my new salmon joint. I want to open up here soon.
Black Guy Fawkes.
Yep. It's just all salmon lox bagels.
That inspired me for another one. Grant, has anyone horribly done your name wrong when announcing you someplace?
No, not pronouncing it. I will say I've
Or
seen a lot
printing
of like spelling
Yeah.
it, but not pronouncing it. I feel like I have a pretty easy to pronounce name.
Well, yeah, I meant more of the spelling stuff. Ian's been
Yeah.
called all sorts of shit.
Yeah. Oh, the spelling, first name's fine. My last name, I've gotten quite a few odd variations in the spelling, but
Ian, what was
Yeah.
your worst? Is it the one I'm thinking?
I feel like the top 3 worst. Number 3 will probably be Black Man Fox.
As in the animal fox, right?
Yeah. Then the second one would probably be Bad Guy Fawkes. But the pinnacle and the ultimate one is still Black Hawk Down. Like, well, you're not even trying. You're not even trying.
were they like messing with you or like what?
No, this is on a flyer.
Yeah, Black Man Fox is on a flyer. Bad Guy Fawkes, that was in an article in a paper. And then Black Hawk Down, that was just a Facebook comment. But it still just made me laugh.
That's wild.
At this point, I feel like when I was young, I feel like I got mad about that, or still struck my left a little bit, but now I just don't care. That was just comedic gold.
Yeah.
And that's how Ed and Matt Flood and Jake Matthews all humble me by calling me that.
Got to keep him humble.
I got one. Give me your hot take on comic books, like any comic
Oh,
or any manga or anime. Just give me your hottest take.
Yeah, cause the drama, Grant.
I don't know if this is a hot take or not, but yeah, I'm not a fan of The Crow, the original, like the comic. The movie, the first movie, I think is great, and I get what James O'Barr was like going for. I think it could have been a much better final product. I get that I know like the whole story behind, what he was going through, like when he wrote it. So I understand it's really raw for a reason, but I don't know. I just it wasn't really my cup of tea.
And what's your biggest comic or whatever hot take?
My easy one is that if something's labeled mature readers, that should mean more than just titties and swearing.
I fully agree.
I want an actual grown up story. If you're going to say mature readers, if not, just put a label on it that says titties and swearing.
Yeah.
I don't know how bold of a take that is, though. At boldest, things should just fucking end. Come up with some new shit.
Yeah.
I'm tired. Yeah.
Yep.
And then here's my last one of the game. Who's somebody you'd love to go perform and play with?
Oh. If I'm going like an absolute dream for me would be, there's a band that I am a huge fan of. They're from New York. They're called Frog. And like, I've only met one other person who, like, I mentioned Frog and they were like, oh yeah, they're one of my favorite bands. And I'm like, heck yeah. But normally it's like, I'm introducing like other people to their music, but they would be an absolute dream come true for me. Not only because they have a really cool sound that I love, but I think, the fact that their aesthetics are like pretty DIY, I think that's really cool. They're definitely a big dream for me.
I have one more for you as well.
Okay.
No, 2 more actually. One, you're at a bar.
Mhm.
Karaoke's happening. What song are you doing?
Oh, I have a couple. Depends on how I'm feeling. And these are completely different from each other, but I still stand by these picks. One of them is Goodbye Yellow Brick Road, Elton John. And the other is Toxicity by System of a Down.
Yes, 2 genders.
Yep.
All right, my last one on so many comic books again. Toby, Andrew, Tom. Rank them best to worst.
For nostalgia purposes, I feel like I'd put Toby at the top, but I don't know. I like all of them. That's the thing. I think Tom best represents the comic version that I know of Peter Parker. He's got that kind of awkward high school kind of thing going on. I think Tom Holland captures that really well. But I think more than the Andrew movies or the Tobey movies. I think Tom really gets that, like, Spider-Man has no idea, like, what he's doing. He's still just a kid. I think he gets that right more than the other two. But I don't know. I think as actors, I feel like I like Andrew Garfield the most as an actor. It's hard to rank them for me because I view each of them differently. I think I like very different things about each one, so I find it hard to put them in a specific order. But yeah,
There's not a clear bad one. That's what
No.
makes it tough.
yeah,
Yeah, I agree. I feel like one definitely had worse movies, but they were the portrayals weren't necessarily bad. I'm very much Tom,
okay,
and I feel like he's the perfect balance of Peter and Spider-Man. Then I'll put Toby after that because I feel like outside of the Spider-Man role being perfect, you have to play Peter perfectly. Same way I feel like when it comes to Bruce Wayne, like we have Bruce, you have to also find that balance too. So I'll put Toby second, and then I'll put Andrew last. Nothing against him. I love his Spider-Man portrayal. He was fantastic as Spider-Man persona, but Peter he just seemed too cool. If that makes sense.
I can see that. I can see that for sure.
Here's me being an absolute nerd. So Andrew Garfield was clearly like the John Romita Peter Parker,
Yeah, absolutely.
where he was becoming a cool guy. And Andrew Garfield was like the Romita one. Toby was like the Ditko or the Ultimate Spider-Man one, like
Yeah.
the nerdy kid, right? And then Tom just gets it right.
I see that. I can see that for sure.
He's a nerdy, excitable kid.
And that's I do feel
He
like
can climb walls and canonically lift 10 tons.
I do feel like Emma Stone and Zendaya as a love interest. Poor Andrew and Tom were probably the best ones in my opinion. I felt like Kristen Dunst was okay, but
Yeah.
Yeah, I can agree with that too, for sure.
although I might be biased, but I think the best Spider-Man movies are Into the Spider-Verse. Those movies are just
Oh, 100%.
they are
100.
true fucking Spider-Man movies.
Absolutely. Those
Oh,
are, yeah.
I might download those for the flight.
Oh, one more that I'm actually done. We talk about comics, but I didn't even talk about your martial arts superheroes. Who are your three top
Ooh.
four that you love?
Okay, I would put Batman at number one for sure. He's always been like the one that I've gravitated towards the most. I think just the versatility of his character. I feel like there's more than most other superheroes, I would say. He's had some really wild things done to like his whole mythology, and most of them have really worked for me. So yeah, Batman at number one all the way. Spider-Man's probably my number two. I think for totally different reasons that I like Batman. I think the thing that I love about Spider-Man is the fact that he's so new to just life in general. He's just a young kid, basically, who's trying to figure out the world. And that I think makes his character not only interesting, but really relatable. So yeah, Spider-Man's up there for sure. As far as my other ones, okay, back to hot takes. I have a little bit of a hot take because I
Oh,
just thought of this. I feel like I like Superman a lot, but he's never been like up there for me, like to the level that like Batman is, I would say, or even to the level that Spider-Man is. I think some great things have been done with his character, but I don't know. Overall, I've never been as excited to read a Superman story as I have been to read a Batman story or a Daredevil story. Daredevil's another one for me. I really like.
Yeah, I feel like the best Superman stories involve him dying. If that makes sense. 'Cause
Yeah.
At least they make not like a malicious or just like a dickish way, but I feel like his best stories are when you see him more humanized than anything.
Yeah, for
So-
sure.
Like when I think it was All-Star when he flew and directly into the sun and had a radiation poisoning, and then we had his last days on Earth. I like stuff like that. Or even Red Sun, where he's fucking
My favorite Superman story. Yep.
It's so good. Stuff like that makes him more interesting. So
Yeah, I agree.
Grant, thank you so much for coming on and talking with us today.
Oh,
Um,
absolutely.
Where can people find you, and are you working on anything else?
Yeah, I'm in the writing process for some new stuff. I mean, I'm always coming up with new melodies and writing more lyrics and things like that. But yeah, as far as where you can find me, I'm on Instagram. My music is on anywhere you get music, really. Apple Music, Spotify, Amazon, YouTube. Yeah.
Well, Grant, it was amazing to have you on. And I love conversations where we actually get to talk about comics and graphic novels, because again, that stuff also feels my inspiration too.
Oh, for
So,
sure.
and those worlds are so interconnected in my opinion, both music and comics. So to be
Definitely.
able to talk about this was a lot of fun. So thank you for coming on.
Oh, absolutely.
Truly.
Thanks for having me.
This show is the brainchild of Black Guy Fawkes folk punk griot. You can find him on all the social medias as Black Guy Fawkes or Black Guy Fawkes Music, as well as on Bandcamp. Merch, music, and ticket sales are how independent music gets sustained, but word of mouth also helps a great deal. The intro and outro are both from the song New American Meltdown by Black Guy Fawkes, so that's legally covered because this is his podcast, and that is his song available on the album Life, Love, and the Bomb. Additional music elements provided by Ben Dumb Production Music. Check out more at bdmusicproduction.com for all your bespoke royalty-free background music needs. Sound design and editing by Ed Coulard, who appears courtesy of his dog and many, many cats. Cover art by Jacob Matthews, a pal who has been down since day one. Finally, while Fawkes and Friends firmly believes that punk rock is and should be a safe space, we know it can't be safe for everyone without excluding bad elements. So remember,
So tell your local Nazis and your fascists to fuck off.
I'm probably going to count me saying this, but we always have some kind of pizza-related question, and I'm trying to think of one. We have to. It's part
It's
of the
us.
course now. Yeah.